Hello everyone, this is Jennifer. In this video, we're going to look into the environmental law. So, what is the environmental law? It is the government of India basically enacted the Environment Protection Act in the year 1986 under the Article 253 of the Constitution. So, what was the purpose of implementing this act was basically to protect the environmental pollution or to improve the environment and prevent any hazards towards the human beings or other living creatures like the plants, property, etc. So it basically lays standards for industrial operations and handling hazardous substances. So objectives of the act is, so it confers powers on the central government to protect the quality of the environment, take all necessary actions in protecting the quality of the environment, then coordinating actions of states, officers, and other authorities under this act, then plan and execute a nationwide program for prevention, control, and make it a much more eco friendly society for the living generations. Standards for discharge, it also lays down standards and rules and regulation for discharge of the environment pollutants. Then it empowers any person to enter, inspect, take samples, and test. And also it establishes or recognizes an environmental laboratories for testing the environment and for testing the hazardous. Then it acts as a government analyst, the central government. Then the central government restricts, lays down standards for the quality of the environment. Then it restricts areas in which industries or operation or process should be there, and also tells the areas where the industry operation can actively be situated, or it also tells where environment, it also tells the places where it need not set up its industries or its companies or its factories. So where industry can be set up or where industry cannot be set up, the areas will be restricted by the central government of India. It safeguards for prevention of accidents, and it takes remedial measures in such accidents, and it lays down procedures and safeguards for the handling the hazardous substances. It also exercises powers of the authority. Then it issues directions to any persons, officer, or authority, including the power to direct closure, prohibition, or regulation of any industry, operation, or processes. And also it requires any person, officers, or authority to furnish any prescribed information. It delegates power to the officers for the state and also the authority to the people for taking care of the environment. So what is the second authority it does? What is the objective of this act is? It confers powers on persons to complain to courts regarding if there are any violation of the prohibition. So after a notice of 60 days to the prescribed authorities. So the act makes it obligatory. Third one is the act makes it obligatory for a person in charge of a place to inform the prescribed authorities regarding any accidental discharge of any pollutants in excess beyond the prescribed standards. So the fourth one is if it prescribes the penalties if there are violation of the act. So what penalty needs to be done, paid? So is it paying cash or is it suing the industry or something like that? Next is jurisdiction of civil courts is barred under the act. So jurisdiction is nothing but the power given to make decisions. So that is not being done by the civil court. So it is barred under this act. So moving on to the next slide, definition of important terms. So what does environment basically mean? It includes water, air, land, and the interrelationship among them, and also the other living creatures like the plants, microorganisms, human beings, and property. Second one, what is an environmental pollutant? It means any solid or gaseous substance present in such concentration that it may be injurious to the environment. For example, if there are a lot of vehicles moving, there is a air pollution cost. So the gas that is produced by the vehicles, that becomes a pollutant. So the third one is environment pollution. So it means the presence in the environment, the in the environment of any environmental pollution. Next is hazardous substance. Hazardous substance mean any substance or preparation which by reason of its chemical or physiochemical properties or handling, it's liable to cause harm to the human beings other than living creatures like plant, microorganisms, property or the environment. What do you mean by an occupier? Occupier means a person who has control over the affairs of the factory or premises and includes in relation to any substance the person in possession of this substance. So what are the types of pollution? So there are various types of pollution. So pollution basically refers to unfavorable alteration in our surroundings, wholly or largely or as a byproduct of human action, either through direct or indirect effects of changes in the energy pattern, chemical or physical construction, and abundance of the organisms. So what are the types of pollution? The first one is the water pollution. Water pollution is a contamination of the water bodies. So basically when pollutants are discharged directly or indirectly through the water bodies, so it becomes harmful for the drinking. Second one is air pollution. Air contains is a mixture of various gases like the oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, argon, etc. So air pollution is the introduction of pollutants into the atmosphere through the chemical particles or biological material that cause discomfort or disease to the living organisms. So some of the important air pollutants would be carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and hydrocarbon oxide. So the next one is noise pollution. The word noise basically originated from the Latin word noisy, meaning sea sicknesses. So it is an unwanted sound that disrupts the environmental equilibrium. So what adverse effect does it have? It basically hearing loss and hearing impairment can be caused. Cardiovascular health effects can be caused. It decreases efficiency and concentration. It increases the blood pressure. It increases the stress level, etc. What is next one is your land pollution. So what do you mean by land pollution? Deforestation or release of toxic substance on the land, or throwing unhygienic waste on the earth, or dumping garbage or biomedical waste, etc. can cause land pollution. The next one is solid waste pollution. So waste are the material that are not needed and are economically unusable without further processing. So this solid waste would include agricultural waste, etc. So this may be mixed up and it causes a pollution in the environment. Next is food pollution. So food adulteration is the basic concept of food pollution. Adding chemicals or the pollution of food begins basically by the chemical fertilizers and various pesticides in order to grow the plants, or directly adding chemicals or indirectly adding chemicals which affect the quality of the food and the health of the consumer. So the the next one is thermal pollution. Temperature plays a very important role in determining the conditions in which living organisms can survive. So any undesirable harmful change in the natural temperature disturbing the natural heat balance of the surroundings is called the thermal pollution. The next one is the nuclear, that is nothing but radioactive. So pollution, one of the most important and dangerous type of pollution is the nuclear pollution. It is produced basically by the nuclear explosion. So the best example could be the Hiroshima atomic bombings. So the next one is powers of central government in order to protect the environment. Protect. So power, there are various powers which are taken over by the central government in order to take measures to protect and improve the environment. So they have the power to take all measures for the purpose of the protecting and improving the environment. And next, it includes certain provisions that they hold on, like coordinating of actions along with these state governments which are relatable to the objects under this act in order to protect the environment. Second is planning and execution of the nationwide program for the prevention, control and abatement of the environmental pollution, the reduction. Basically, the third one is it lays down standards for the quality of the environment. Next is lay down standard for the emission and discharge of the environmental pollutants. Next is it designates the areas for wherein the industry needs to be located. Next is it also lays down procedures and safeguards the prevention of accidents or environmental pollution, and it also takes remedial measures, and it also lays down procedures and safeguards for handling hazardous substances. It inspects the premises, plant and equipment. It takes steps to for prevention. It inspects the environmental laboratory. It sets up environmental laboratories. It prepares the manual codes or guides relating to the prevention of it, etc. Then it also exercises powers for the purpose of this act by order published in the official gazette, which has which has an authority or authorities by such names or names which may be specified for the purpose of exercising and performing powers, which includes for issuing directions, and it also takes measures for taking care of the matters referred to the subsections of the act, and it also supervises and controls there are authorities. So official gazette becomes the authority, so as may be mentioned, so in the order and subject to the supervision and control of the central government and the provisions of this order, authority or authorities may exercise the powers or perform the functions or take the measures as mentioned in the order if such authority or authority has been empowered by the act to perform the order. On to the next one, which is cyber law. So what do you mean by cyber law? Cyber law is completely connected with the interface of, so cyberspace is something that is growing right now rapidly because we're virtually more connected than physically. So at that time there is something called a cyber law which was introduced. So basically, what is the definition of cyber law? So there are no exhaustive definition of the word term cyber law. However, if it is there, it is simply termed to be as legal and regulatory aspects of the internet and the world wide web. So introduction to the Indian cyber law. So with the spontaneous growth of the cyberspace, there are lots of cyber crime which comes into existence. So because of that, cyber law or the law of internet came into existence. So the growth of cyberspace has resulted in the development of the new and highly specialized branch of law called the cyber law, which is the law of the internet and the world wide web. So next, what do you mean by cyber security? Cyberspace is so cyberspace is a concept describing a widespread interconnected digital technology. So it's nothing but so cyberspace is nothing but it is environmental of the internet. So basically a best example of cyberspace can be the home of Google, Yahoo, etc., wherein the virtual space is created by the internet, interconnected computers and computer networks on the internet. So, in simple words, is the environment in which communication over computer network occurs. So, what do you mean by cyber securities? So, cyber security is a practice of defending computers and servers, mobile services, electronic systems, networks, and data from malicious attacks. So, it is also known as the information technology security or electronic information security. So, thank you everyone.